In November, we will host the 34th EFFoST International Conference. And this year, for the first time, it will be totally held online. On the first day, we have a great lineup with inspiring plenary speakers, including Christoph Hartmann from Nestlé in Switzerland. Currently, he leads academic alliances and expertise development, and we have the opportunity to ask him a couple of questions on how he thinks the food sector will develop. Hello, Professor Christoph Hartmann. Yes, well, first of all, what do you think the food industry should focus on making healthier? And how can this be balanced with affordability?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Obviously, the food industry should focus on food the consumers want, right? So we need to reply to consumer demand first. It is the reason to be for the food industry. At the same time, we must be very responsible in the face of, trends which are currently taking place. I mentioned loss of biodiversity, climate change, population increase, and malnutrition as well. Yeah, and I think the food industry should and must shift towards a portfolio which actually takes both into account and which introduces diversity, in the sense that more diverse products actually and more diverse diets are healthier. Yeah. At the same time, this brings a new diversity in the portfolio of ingredients which are going to be used in the future. Yeah, and ultimately it even impacts agriculture. Yeah? So there will be more diversity in the selection of raw materials, of crops and plants which are going to be grown. Yeah? I think this is a way forward to come up with, let's say, responsible product portfolios. Yeah? And that's, I think, where the future should go for the food industry.
So let's talk about digitalization. How will this affect the food sector?
Well, the future is already here, right? Digitalization has entered food manufacturing already since quite a while. There are process analytical tools and technologies out there. There is advanced control as a means actually to anticipate earlier line failures, maintenance intervals, to improve actually also the efficiency of production lines. Yeah, so I think the food industry is pretty much on track what concerns manufacturing. Yeah, where I see in the future opportunities is more on the side, actually on the consumer side, where also there is access to potentially many consumers, therefore a massive amount of data and potentially also a massive amount of insights. Yeah? So for me, the question is on digitalization is how to grasp what consumers do and want with digital applications. Then I think a big potential also bears personalization, actually, where we can have the ambition to grasp an individual pain, need, and desire, and to translate this into an individual variant of a product. Yeah, ultimately, and on the longer term, of course. Yeah. And then what I also see, and I think there's still much more room for improvement, there is, of course, the possibility also to think about, digital technologies to be creative, to invent new food. Yeah? And there, I think we are not yet there. We are still finding the right questions to answer with this and use this technology as an enabler. The technology is not a goal on its own. It is an enabler, and it must be a solution to something. And I think here's more progress needed.
So, Professor, what do you think balancing food palatability, healthiness, and affordability, is it attainable?
This is a very old challenge, actually, and I believe it is attainable. If I may reflect a little bit on the history, that problem was first stated and solved by George Stigler in 1943. George Stigler is a Nobel Prize laureate, so this is we should not ignore that research, right? And so he tried to balance nutritional value and cost, and he came up with the so-called Stigler diet. Yeah. the downside of this approach, and that, I mean, he was ahead of his time, but today it is still of a certain relevance, but we need to upgrade it. Yeah, the downside of his research was that he did not integrate acceptability by consumers. Yeah, he did maybe even not integrate sustainability effects. Yeah, and ultimately it happened that the Stiegler diet actually is not very well appreciated by consumers because it doesn't taste very good. Yeah, so now the way forward is simply, think about an approach, a methodology even to optimize a diet and therefore also products, yeah, by taking account not only nutritional value, cost, but also acceptability by consumers. You can measure that. And then also environmental impact of such a diet or product. Yeah, and then this optimization approach should actually negotiate trade-offs between all these criteria, and it will bring us to a, let's say, negotiated trade-off between those criteria, and that will result into a product or a diet that is maybe a little bit, less nutritional, but more accepted, which might have a little bit a higher cost, but then maybe a little bit less of an impact on the environment. And overall, it will be a more acceptable solution by the consumers. And this is how I would go about it. Yeah, and again, it will certainly address the need of many people in the world who need to be very careful with their expenses for food, yeah, and it will help then also, to solve some of the nutritional problems we have in the world. Not all, definitely. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to your presentation at the EFFoST International Conference in November. Thank you very much.
I look very much forward to speak and to be virtually at EFFoST 2020. I think that will be a great occasion to have more interaction with all of you. Thank you very much.